30 men tried. The voice rasped, low and dry as desert wind, and 30 men failed. The corral boards rattled under the stallion's fury. Dust spun into the air, a storm rising from the ground. The beast, black as midnight, eyes burning like coals, struck the earth with hooves that thundered. Men clung to the rails, knuckles white, spitting curses between their teeth. One cowboy flew hard into the dirt, thrown before the count of 3, ribs cracking beneath him. His scream carried out over the gathered crowd. The stallion reared again, mane lashing wild in the light, a shadow against the sun. Women gasped. Children pressed into their mothers' skirts. Someone muttered, "That horse ain't of this world." From a far side of the corral, Jedediah Cross leaned against the post, boots planted, hat brim shadowing eyes that missed nothing. His coat was too fine for dust, yet dust clung to him all the same, as though the land itself despised his pride. He didn't move when the cowboy lay groaning in the dirt. He just spat a thin line into the dust and said flat and cold, "Another one failed." A silence followed, heavy and sharp. "Half my land to the man who rides him." Cross bellowed at the crowd, his voice carrying across the ranch yard, across the hills. "Half my land, if you've got the sand to last more than a heartbeat." No one stepped forward. Boots shuffled, eyes cut away. The stallion screamed, slamming the gate with a shoulder, as though daring them himself. The challenge hung there, hotter than the sun. And then the coach rattled into view. It came slow along the dusty road, its wheels creaking, its shadow long against the earth. Horses pulling it looked tired, but the coach itself carried an air of finality, like a coffin on wheels. The town turned as one, whispers rising, heads tilting. The driver cracked his whip once, then drew the team to a halt before the crowd. The door opened. A small boot touched the ground first, worn leather, travel-stained. Then a hem of plain gray fabric brushed the dust. A figure stepped down into the sun, pale against the heat, steady in her movements. A woman, no taller than the ranch hand's shoulders, with a trunk in one hand and a folded paper in the other. Her bonnet shadowed her face, but her posture was straight as a rifle barrel. Jedediah's lips curled slow beneath his mustache. "Well, boys," he drawled, "looks like the mail brought my bride." The laughter broke easy from the crowd, cruel and careless. A mail-order bride, thin as paper, stepping into the heart of the wild frontier. But she didn't flinch. Her eyes, gray as storm clouds, lifted toward the corral. She looked at the stallion, not at Jedediah, not at the men staring. The beast tossed his head, muscles rippling like waves under his skin, but she did not look away. Someone muttered, "She'll faint in this sun." Another spat, "She won't last a week." She shifted her trunk to the dirt, folded the paper once, and slipped it into her sleeve. Then she walked forward, step after step, skirts brushing dust, bonnet trembling in the breeze. She stopped at the corral fence. The stallion saw her, his ears pinned back. His hooves struck once, twice, rattling the ground. A sharp hiss tore from his throat, his eyes wild. Yet the woman only lifted her hand, palm open, slow as dawn rising. The laughter died, quiet. "Ma'am," a ranch hand called nervously, "best stand back. That beast'll tear you in two." Her voice, when it came, was calm, steady. "What's his name?" Jedediah barked a laugh. "Name? The devil needs no name. But the boys call him Diablo's shadow." She nodded once, as though filing the truth in her mind. "He's not the devil." Cross's eyes narrowed, his smirk fading. "And what do you figure him for, miss?" Her gaze did not leave the stallion. A creature born of storms. No storm breaks beneath a whip. It listens if you know how to speak. The men exchanged uneasy glances. Whispers stirred again, low and sharp. The stallion struck the fence, wood splintering under his weight, dust pluming high. Jedediah pushed from the post, his boots thudding against the earth as he stepped closer, his shadow cutting across hers. "You saying you can do what 30 men couldn't?" She finally turned her head, lifting her bonnet so the sun caught her eyes. They were not soft. They were not meek. They carried storms of their own. "I'm saying she answered, quiet as thunder before it cracks. He's not yours to master. But I'll ride him. The silence that followed carried weight enough to crush. Someone in the crowd let out a nervous laugh, quickly stifled. Another hissed, crazy talk. Yet none spoke louder than a whisper. The stallion pawed the earth, his breath snorting like smoke, but his eyes held hers now, unblinking. Jedediah studied her long, his jaw tight, pride warring with curiosity. Then, with a sharp gesture toward the corral, he barked, "Fine. Try. And if he kills you, your blood ain't on my hands." The crowd drew in tighter, boots crunching, breath held. The woman untied the strings of her bonnet, set it gently atop her trunk, and stepped to the gate. Her dress fluttered faint in the dry wind. Her hand reached, slow as prayer, for the latch. The stallion waited, ears twitching, body coiled. The crowd leaned forward as one, eyes wide, silence thick. The gate groaned, dust swirled, and the legend began. The stallion's hooves tore the corral floor, dust curling into the morning air like smoke from fire. Eleanor stood inside the circle, skirts heavy with grit, her breath steady. She did not move fast, did not flinch when the black beast lunged, teeth bared. Instead, she lowered herself slowly, one knee pressing into the dirt, eyes level with his rage. The men on the rails shouted warnings. "Get out of there, miss. He'll crush you flat." But she did not hear them. Her hand brushed the ground, fingers gathering dust, then lifted, open, quiet, steady. The stallion froze, chest heaving, sides glistening with sweat. He struck once, twice, nostrils flaring, yet his gaze caught on hers as though the storm had found its mirror. Dawn stretched thin across the corral. Every soul watching held their breath. The horse snorted, tossed his head, and backed away a step. She did not follow. She stayed low, her hand still open. A whisper escaped her lips, not words, not loud enough for the crowd, just a soft hum carried on the dry wind. Hours passed like that, the sun crawling higher, sweat dripping down faces on the rails. Eleanor neither rushed nor faltered. Each time the stallion circled close, she lowered her eyes, never challenging, never yielding. Each time he bolted to the far side, she waited. By midday, silence lay heavy over the ranch yard. The laughter from before had died. Men leaned forward on the rails, arms heavy, eyes wide, unwilling to look away. The black beast stood less wild now, still trembling but listening. Jedediah Cross broke the stillness with a sharp bark. "Enough of this foolishness. A week won't break him. He's a demon, and you're wasting my time." Eleanor rose to her feet, slow and sure. Her dress was coated in dust, her bonnet long discarded, hair streaked with sweat. She turned toward Jedediah, but said nothing. Her silence cut sharper than words, and for a moment even he shifted beneath the weight of her gaze. That night the lanterns burned low. Coyotes yipped in the distance while the stallion paced the corral. Eleanor returned, a small tin pail in her hand, water sloshing softly. She set it inside the gate, then stepped back, folding her hands. The stallion approached with suspicion, sniffed, then drank. His sides shuddered, his thirst deep as the desert itself. The ranch hands watched from the shadows, whispering, "She ain't trying to break him. She's courting him, like he's a man." Morning came again, and the crowd gathered as before. Eleanor sang soft this time, a tune older than the land itself, low and steady. The stallion shifted closer, ears flicking, body tense. She did not reach for him, not yet. She only stood, voice threading through the dust like water through stone. By the third day, the whispers in town had changed. She's witching him. No, she's taming him, with nothing but patience. The laughter had died completely. Jedediah spat whenever he passed, his jaw set hard. "A waste," he growled. "She's making a fool of me." But his eyes lingered longer each time, caught on the slow storm building between woman and beast. On the fifth dawn, the stallion lowered his head as Eleanor stepped near. His breath fanned hot against her palm. The men on the rails leaned forward as though the whole world balanced on that moment. Then at last, her hand brushed his muzzle. A sound escaped the crowd, half gasp, half disbelief. The stallion did not rear. He stood, trembling, nostrils wide, but he did not move away. Eleanor's fingers slid along his cheek, gentle, certain, as though she had known him always. One of the men whispered, awed, "She's got him." But Jedediah's voice cut hard through the silence. "She ain't got him till she rides him. Don't matter if he lets her stroke his nose. The beast is still wild." Eleanor turned, her palms still resting against the stallion's face. "Wildness isn't the enemy," she said quietly, words carrying across the yard. "Pride is." The stallion shuddered beneath her touch, and though Jedediah sneered, not one man dared laugh this time. That evening the rival rancher, Clayton Maddox, rode in with his men. His voice carried loud, mocking. "So this is the grand show?" A widow whispering to a horse. His laughter rang false, brittle as glass. "I've seen tougher women at church socials." Jedediah stiffened at the insult, pride bristling. Eleanor did not answer. She simply stood beside the stallion, her hand steady, her eyes on the horizon where the sun bled red into the dust. Maddox sneered, spitting into the dirt. "Mark me cross. She'll fail like all the others. Only difference is, when she does, your name will carry the shame of letting a bride fight your battles." Jedediah's fist clenched, but Eleanor's voice cut in soft, even. "It's not a battle." Maddox laughed again, but unease flickered in his men's eyes. The stallion's ears twitched, his body pressed closer to hers, as though some unspoken pact bound them now. The crowd dispersed uneasy that night, whispers rising like restless ghosts. The legend was no longer just about the stallion. It was about the woman, the bride who dared to stand in the dust, singing storms to silence. Lanterns flickered against the corral fence, their glow barely holding back the dark. The stallion paced inside, muscles rippling, eyes catching the firelight like twin embers. Eleanor stood close, her hand resting along the rough wood, her whisper carrying low, a lullaby only the horse could hear. The night air was sharp with dust and sweat. Then, the crack of a boot in the shadows. She stilled. The stallion's head shot up, ears pricked. More steps followed, hushed but hurried. A metallic click echoed, rifles drawn, hammers cocked. Figures slipped from the dark. Clayton Maddox at their head, his grin white against the lamplight, his men fanning wide around the corral. Their guns glinted, their eyes burned with greed. "Step aside, widow," Maddox hissed. "That beast's worth less than the breath he steals. Tonight, he dies." Eleanor didn't move. She shifted 1 foot forward, her skirts brushing the dirt, her body square between their rifles and the stallion. The lantern glow caught her face, calm, unyielding. "You'll shoot through me," she said, her voice even. Maddox's grin widened. "So be it. Cross loses his prize, you lose your foolish dream, and I win twice in one night." The stallion screamed, hooves pounding the earth, rattling the boards. The men flinched but steadied their rifles. Maddox raised his hand, ready to fire. Eleanor's lips parted. A whistle, sharp and cutting, split the night. The stallion exploded from the shadows, black lightning crashing forward. He struck the rails, splintering them, lunging straight into the ring of gunmen. Maddox's men scattered, curses flying, rifles twisting wild. A shot cracked, then another, bullets slicing air, but the beast was faster, a storm loose from chains. Eleanor moved with him. She caught the torn edge of his mane, swung up bareback in one fluid motion, her skirts snapping in the wind. Gasps tore from the ranch hands who had stumbled from the bunkhouse at the noise. There she rode, bareback, no saddle, no bridle. Only her legs and her grip in the horse's dark mane. The stallion bucked, twisted, spun, yet she moved as though she had been born on his back. The lantern light caught her face, hair streaming free, eyes fierce as fire. Not a mail-order bride, not a widow of sorrow. A rider, a master of war horses. Maddox cursed, rage spitting from him like sparks. "She's a fraud," he shouted into the chaos. "She's no bride. She's tricked you all." The stallion spun hard, Eleanor leaning with him, her whistle sharp, guiding his fury. The men staggered, driven back by hooves that struck like hammers. At last Maddox stumbled clear of the corral, panting, his rifle shaking in his hands. He pointed it toward her, finger whitening on the trigger. Jedediah Cross's voice thundered from the darkness. Enough! The rancher strode into the lantern glow, coat swinging, boots sinking into the churned earth. His revolver gleamed in his hand, aimed square at Maddox. Drop it! Maddox's sneer faltered, but his pride held. You're a fool, Cross, hiding behind a woman, letting her shame your name before the whole town. Jedediah's eyes cut to Eleanor, still astride the black beast, her breath steady, the stallion quivering beneath her, yet under her hand. For the first time, the rancher's pride cracked, a shadow of doubt flickering across his face. The rival's words sank sharp, poisoning him in front of all who watched. His fist tightened. His pride, always sharper than sense, blazed back into life. Fine then, Jedediah growled, his voice iron and dust. If she claims she can tame him, let her prove it where all can see. His gaze fixed hard on Eleanor. At dawn, before the town, you ride him full and true, or you leave my land forever. The words cut deeper than a bullet. The crowd hushed. Maddox's sneer curled again, victory glowing in his eyes. Eleanor sat tall upon the stallion's back, her breath visible in the cold night air. She said nothing, only stroked the beast's neck, her silence heavier than any answer. The stallion tossed his head, mane flying, hooves striking sparks in the dirt. The lanterns shuddered in their posts, shadows leaping long across the ground. And in that silence, the tale turned. The sun bled red across the horizon, painting the corral in fire. Townsfolk pressed tight against the rails, faces pale in the rising light. Boots scuffed dirt, whispers stirred like dry leaves. All eyes fixed on the black stallion, his breath steaming, his muscles coiled with thunder. Eleanor stood before him, skirts heavy with dust, hair unbound in the morning wind. Her hand lay steady on his muzzle, her eyes unshaken. Jedediah Cross's voice cut the silence. Ride him. The crowd held its breath. Eleanor drew in one slow breath, her palm sliding along the stallion's neck. His skin twitched beneath her touch, but he did not shy away. She gathered the black mane in her hands, pressed her knee to his side, and swung herself up. The stallion exploded. He reared, hooves slashing the air, a scream tearing from his throat that rattled the fence rails. Dust churned, rising in waves as he bucked, twisted, slammed his body sideways. The crowd shouted, curses, gasps, prayers. But Eleanor held. Her body moved with him, flowing like water, legs tight, grip firm in his mane. Her voice rose above the chaos, not a cry of fear, but a steady hum, the same low song she had whispered in the nights. The stallion fought, every muscle straining, but her song wrapped around him like a rope woven of air itself. The old storyteller's voice lingered in the hush of the onlookers. Some say she rode not with strength, but with sorrow, and sorrow holds heavier than chains. Minutes dragged like hours. Sweat streamed down the stallion's flanks. Dust clung to Eleanor's dress, but still she remained. Her back straight, her gaze steady. At last, the stallion slowed. His head lowered, foam flecking his mouth, sides heaving. He struck the earth once, twice, then bowed, front knees sinking into the dirt. The crowd erupted, voices rising like thunder rolling across the canyon. She's done it. Lord above, she's done it. Jedediah's jaw clenched, pride torn between fury and awe. Maddox cursed under his breath, spitting into the dust. But none could deny what they had seen. A woman had tamed what 30 men could not. Eleanor slid from the stallion's back, her hand never leaving his neck. She stood tall, her face streaked with sweat and dust, but her eyes brighter than the dawn behind her. Jedediah stepped forward, voice rough. Half my land is yours. You earned it. The crowd hushed again, waiting, expecting her to claim riches, power, victory. But Eleanor shook her head. I don't want your land, Jedediah Cross. Her hand patted the stallion's neck, the beast standing calm at her side now. I only came for freedom. His and mine. Gasps rippled through the crowd. She turned toward the open plains, the stallion pacing with her, his black mane glinting in the sun. The crowd parted without a word, boots shuffling, hats clutched in reverent silence. At the edge of the yard, she mounted once more, the stallion leaping forward into the light. Dust trailed behind them, a storm breaking loose upon the endless horizon. The old voice carried over the hush, low and certain. They say she rode out that morning and was never seen again. Some whisper she rides still when storms break over the plains. The widow who tamed the untamable, the bride who rode the devil's shadow into legend. The crowd stood long after she vanished, dust still swirling where she had been. None laughed, none mocked. Only silence, heavy and holy, clung to the air. And the tale, once born, never died.